Are you content with average, or do you crave extraordinary? Welcome to Bookish Mind, Season 09, Episode 08, where we dive into Chapter 8 of John C. Maxwell's transformative book, How Successful People Think, to challenge the very notion of popular thinking. Our mission today really is to unpack this whole concept, to dig into why it so often seems to limit our potential. As I was reading this chapter, this quote from Douglas Cardinal really jumped out at me. He said, "I'm not an answering machine, I'm a questioning machine. If we have all the answers, how come we're in such a mess?"
Hmm.
It just perfectly sets the stage, I think, for questioning everything we sort of take for granted.
It absolutely does, yeah. And it points to something fundamental, doesn't it? Developing new ideas is, well, it's hard. The economist John Maynard Keynes put it really well. He said, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from the old ones.
Hmm.
Our brains, they like efficiency. They prefer the familiar path. So breaking free from old ways of thinking, it's surprisingly tough, even when those ways aren't working for us anymore.
That is so true. You see that resistance all the time, don't you? Like maybe a business person trying a totally new strategy that just flies in the face of company tradition. Or, a pastor bringing in contemporary music where it's always been hymns. Or even something simpler, like a new mom rejecting those old wives' tales for, evidence-based stuff. Or a teenager just ignoring fashion trends to be themselves. In every case, someone's making a conscious choice not to follow the crowd, to think differently.
And that's exactly Maxwell's point. If you value popularity over good, solid thinking, you're actually limiting your own potential. So many big transformative ideas, well, they started out by challenging what everyone else thought. It's really foundational if you want to achieve more than just average.
Yeah, and Maxwell does a great job breaking down what popular thinking looks like. He points out all these limiting traits, like being too lazy to master the process of intentional thinking, or too traditional to discover the joy of creative thinking. These aren't just labels. They feel like, diagnoses of these mental traps we fall into. Which really brings us to the core question for this deep dive. Why should we bother questioning popular thinking? What's the payoff?
Well, let's get into that because there are some really specific reasons. And it's not just about, being different for difference's sake. It impacts your actual results.
Right. Okay, so the first big reason is that popular thinking sometimes means not thinking at all. My friend Kevin Myers put it perfectly. The problem with popular thinking is that it doesn't require you to think at all.
Exactly. Real thinking, good thinking, it's hard work, it takes effort, analysis. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. If it were easy, well, everyone would be a fantastic thinker, wouldn't they? But a lot of people take the easier route. They kind of skip the mental heavy lifting, hoping someone else has already figured it out for them. This relying on the group, it makes us prone to shortcuts.
Oh, you see that all the time. Like stock market tips. By the time a hot stock tip hits a popular blog or magazine, the trend is usually already going strong. The people who really made money, they were likely the ones who did their own research way earlier, made an unpopular choice before everyone jumped on board. If you just follow blindly, you're not thinking critically. You're just accepting someone else's often outdated conclusion.
Which leads nicely into the second point. Popular thinking often offers false hope. There's this great story from Benno Muller-Hill, a genetics professor, about his high school physics class. The teacher set up a telescope, right, for the students to see a planet and its moons. One by one, the students looked, and even if they struggled a bit, they all eventually said, "Yep, I see it," just like the teacher expected them to.
Wow. So even if they genuinely couldn't see anything, they felt like they had to say they did? That's, yeah.
Exactly. And the kicker, the teacher finally takes a look himself and realizes the lens cap is still on. None of them saw a thing. It's just such a powerful example of how much we want to fit in, how we look for safety in numbers. We think, well, if everyone else is doing it, it must be right.
And that assumption right there, that safety in numbers means correctness, that's the false hope, isn't it? Because unfortunately, history is just full of times when popular thinking was completely, totally wrong.
Oh, absolutely. History is just littered with examples. Popular thinking said the Earth was the center of everything. Copernicus comes along with math proving otherwise. Popular thinking said surgeons didn't need clean hands or instruments. Ignaz Semmelweis and Joseph Lister showed how wrong that was, saving countless lives with basic hygiene and antiseptics. Popular thinking said women shouldn't vote. Emmeline Pankhurst, Susan B. Anthony, and many others fought that. And maybe the most chilling, popular thinking helped put the Nazis in power in Germany. It led to horrors we can barely imagine. The point is, there's a huge difference between what's widely accepted and what's actually intelligent or true. Popularity is no guarantee of truth. Clinging to it just because it's comfy can be really dangerous.
Yeah, and we see it today too, maybe less dramatically, but still hitting people hard. Like, look at your credit card debt. Anyone financially savvy will tell you high interest debt is a terrible trap. Yet millions just follow the buy now, pay later crowd. It feels easy at first, but then they pay and pay and pay. So many promises of popular thinking just don't deliver. They offer comfort, not real benefit.
hmm Then there's the third reason. Popular thinking is inherently slow to embrace change. Popular thinking loves the status quo. It clings to what's known, what's comfortable. Change feels threatening, requires effort. It's not just stubbornness, it's baked into our psychology. Things like status quo bias, preferring things stay the same, or confirmation bias, looking for proof of what we already believe. Popular thinking reinforces all that, making real innovation a constant uphill battle.
Right. Donald M. Nelson, he was a movie producer, I think. He said something great about this. He said, we must discard the idea that past routine are probably the best ways.
Oh.
He said, on the contrary, we must assume that there is probably a better way to do almost everything. We must stop assuming that a thing which has never been done before probably cannot be done at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's a direct challenge to that cozy inertia of popular thought.
Yeah, absolutely is. And that brings us to the fourth reason, which is maybe the simplest. Popular thinking brings only average results. It's really just that straightforward. If you do what everyone else does, guess what? You get what everyone else gets. Average.
Popular equals normal equals average.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's like settling for the least of the best and the best of the least. You know? Just doing enough to get by. If you want uncommon results, you just have to reject common thinking. It's a prerequisite.
Okay, so we've talked about the why. Why question it? Now, let's shift gears a bit and get into the how. How do you actually do this? How do you question the acceptance of popular thinking day to day? It can seem kind of big, but it's really a habit you can build.
Right. So the first step is pretty fundamental. Think before you follow. So many people just follow along automatically. It's often the path of least resistance, right?
Right.
Or maybe fear of being rejected, or just this simple belief that, well, the group must know something. But if you really want to succeed, you have to pause and think, is this really the best way or just the most popular or comfortable way?
And that takes a certain willingness to be unpopular sometimes, to step outside the norm. It means being okay if some people think you're a bit different, maybe even odd, because you're not just going with the flow. The upside of thinking independently is often underrated, maybe misunderstood, but that's where the seeds of vision and opportunity lie. Real progress demands it.
I actually saw this play out right after September 11, 2001. It was a tough time, obviously. Most people stopped flying. Popular thinking was, stay home, it's safer. But my wife and I, we saw an opportunity. About a month later, crowds were way down, security was way up. Flights and hotels in New York were incredibly cheap. We got plane tickets for like a fraction of the usual cost, found a great hotel room for half price, and we even got tickets to the producers, the hottest show on Broadway. We mentioned to the woman next to us we only waited 5 days for tickets. She was totally stunned, said she'd waited a year and a half for hers. It ended up being one of our best trips ever, all because we went against the grain.
That's a perfect example. Observing the situation, thinking counterintuitively. So next time you feel that pull to just conform, just stop. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's genuinely best or just because it's easy or accepted?
Okay, second strategy. Appreciate thinking different from your own. One of the best ways to spark innovation in yourself is to really learn from how other people think. And to do that, you need to expose yourself to different kinds of people, different backgrounds, education levels, jobs, interests. Just mix it up.
My brother, Larry Maxwell, he's a really innovative business guy. He does this intentionally in his companies. He hires people for sales and management from totally different industries, people who sell different products, different services. It constantly brings fresh perspectives into his team, stops them getting stuck in an echo chamber. He even discourages them from getting too involved in the usual trade associations because he feels their thinking gets too, well, common, too insular.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
It just underlines that old idea, doesn't it? You tend to think like the people you spend the most time with. So if you hang out with people who challenge the status quo, you're way more likely to do it yourself.
The third tactic is maybe the hardest. Continually question your own thinking. Let's be honest. When we find something that works, a way of thinking that brings success, the temptation is huge to just stick with it forever. But as Maxwell says, the greatest enemy to tomorrow's success is sometimes today's success. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow.
Yeah, my friend Andy Stanley talks about this in his Challenging the Process teaching. He says progress always requires change. And every tradition, no matter how old, was once a new, maybe even a revolutionary idea. But that doesn't mean it's still the best idea for the future.
And here's the tricky part. If you are the one who set up the current system, you're often the most resistant to changing it. Your ego, your past efforts, they can kind of blind you. That's why constantly questioning yourself, your own assumptions, is so crucial. If you get too attached to your own ideas and how things are done now, well, nothing better will ever come along.
Which leads right into point 4. Try new things in new ways. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you did something for the very first time? Do you tend to avoid risk or trying new stuff? One of the best ways to break out of a mental rut is just to innovate, even in small ways. Like drive a different route to work tomorrow, order something you've never tried at a restaurant, ask a different colleague for help on a routine task. Just shake things up, take yourself off autopilot.
Yeah. Unpopular thinking is always asking questions, looking for options. Maxwell used an example from when his company moved to Atlanta back in '97. Atlanta traffic is notorious, right? So he immediately started looking for alternative routes everywhere he needed to go. Just from his house to the airport, he found and used 9 different routes, all within about 8 miles and 12 minutes of each other, time-wise. He said he'd often see people just sitting, stuck in traffic on the main freeway, when there were perfectly good side roads moving freely. The core issue, he figured, is that most people are more satisfied with old problems than committed to finding new solutions. It's not just about what new things you try, but how. If you try new things but do them the same old popular way, are you really challenging anything?
Good point. Okay, and finally, the 5th way to question popular thinking. Get used to being uncomfortable. Think of popular thinking like a super comfy old recliner you've had forever. It's molded to you, feels safe, takes 0 effort.
Right. But the thing about those old recliners is, if you really looked at them with fresh eyes, you'd probably admit it's time for an upgrade. If you want to reject popular thinking and really achieve something significant, you just have to accept discomfort. That feeling of stretching, of being a little uneasy outside your comfort zone, that's actually a sign you're on the right track. It's part of growth. It's necessary for uncommon results.
And Maxwell offers this great long-term view on it, too. He says something like, in your early years, you won't be as wrong as people think. In your later years, you won't be as right as people think. But all through the years, you'll actually be better than you ever thought you could be.
It really is a journey, isn't it? Constantly questioning what's accepted to reach for something truly extraordinary. It's about refusing to settle for just average, and instead embracing the discomfort that actually fuels real progress.
So, as you think about everything we've discussed today, maybe ask yourself that thinking question from the chapter. Am I consciously rejecting the limitations of common thinking in order to accomplish uncommon results? Just take a moment. Think about one area in your life, work, relationships, maybe just daily habits where you might be coasting on popular thinking without realizing it. What could happen if you deliberately tried a fresh, maybe even uncomfortable approach there? What kind of extraordinary results might unlock?
And here's a final thought to chew on. What obvious truth are you accepting right now, today, that future generations might look back on and find completely absurd? Makes you think, doesn't it?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep thinking.